All right, it is that time of the month again where I share with you what I've pulled together in my cart for working through this month's devotional kit from ByTheWell4God. I like to switch this out, have everything in one place. So let's head on over to my desk and we'll kind of break down each section and I'll share with you what I've pulled together. All right, so I first want to apologize for the humming noise in the background. That's fans going in my house. As I mentioned in the unboxing video, it's hot in my house. And so those are just gonna have to be on for me to be able to film during the day. So please just disregard that. But I pulled out the things from the top of the cart, but I've also pulled out the things from the bottom because I want to show this first. That way you kind of have an idea of where I'm going with the products that I pulled together. And so I wanted to share with you kind of how I'm working through the kit this month. And so I have a couple different things here. I have this Traveler's Notebook cover with Traveler's Notebooks, and then this TN album from Freckled Fawn. This beautiful notebook was actually handmade by my husband. We're kind of playing around with some prototypes to maybe eventually offer these for sale in the future. All handmade. I wish you could smell it. It is amazing. So this is actually where I'm storing the devotional. This is the Subject to Change is the devotional that we're working through this month. If you're curious about what the devotional is about and the other items in the release, be sure to check out my unboxing video. That will be linked down below. There are timestamps in that video, so if there's specific things that you want to see, you can jump to it. It is a really good one, and it is still available in the shop over at ByTheWell4God. So I do have the devotional booklet in this notebook cover, and I've already gone ahead and gone through and highlighted the verses, and then gone through and attached the different journaling cards and flashcards that go with each day. That way, when I go to this day to work through it, I kind of have an idea of what I should try to use when I'm working through that day, and the scripture is already kind of highlighted for me. So that's something that I've been working on. I'll actually go through here with some sticky notes as well, and take some notes and just kind of work through the devotional that way. But in addition to that, I have a few other just blank traveler's notebooks in here. These are not going to just be for notes for this. This is going to be my workhorse for the month. So whether that be other projects for other, companies, articles I'm writing, things like that, all those ideas will go in here, video ideas, grocery lists, all those kind of things are going to reside in this notebook this month, but this is the main devotional content that I will be working through. So all that's going to be in here. And then I had some questions about this because I posted it on Instagram. And so this is the TN album from Freckled Fawn. In my unboxing video, I showed a black one. I ended up switching out to this mint one. It's not a perfect color match, but I liked it a little bit better. So this is the one I went with. And I said it was a TN album. So it is sized to fit traveler's notebooks. There are actual like sleeves that you can purchase to go in here and to put pages that are traveler's notebook sized. And so you could, I guess, fit a traveler's notebook in here if you wanted to punch holes in it and place it in here. But I won't be putting the devotional content in here, maybe at the end of the month, but I was afraid that when I punch the holes, I may punch through the actual text of the devotional. And so I didn't want to risk doing that. So the devotional is going to live in here for now. At the end of the month, I may go through and then insert it into this album to go with it. But for now, this is a separate space to create. So rather than creating in my journaling Bible, I'm going to be creating and note-taking and all of that journaling in here. And so I've gone ahead, preloaded it with some just blank pages. This is just blank cardstock. I'll link what I use down below, but you could also use watercolor paper, colored cardstock, mixed media paper, you name it. I will also be inserting the pattern papers and things like that throughout here as well. Kind of junk journaling, but not really. Junk journaling is a little messy for me, I have found. I like some, kind of more uniform pages in here. And so this will be where I do my art journaling, but also, verse studies, word studies, commentary, quotes, anything that prayers, anything that typically would go to my journaling Bible will go in here. And so as I show those photos, just keep in mind that you can interpret what I do in here into the pages of your Bible, especially if you have the interleaved Bible, that would work as well. But I just wanted to do something a little bit different. So I did go ahead and create kind of a cover page here using some of the pattern paper from the release. You can see the fabric. I did some die cuts. I'll be showing you what I used for that. The stencil, and just kind of created this cover page. And then these pages are cut to 5 inches wide by 8 inches tall, which is a little bit wider than the insert sleeves that you can get for this, and a little bit shorter than the insert sleeves. I did 8 inches because the pattern papers, the 6x8s are 8 inches tall. So I wanted some uniformity in that aspect if I inserted a page of printed paper. And then for the holes, I used my planner punch board, which is in the second tier of my cart. And I have those holes set at 8 and at 30. So I can just slide the page in there, punch it, flip it over, punch it, and it fits perfectly in my album. So again, everything that I mentioned in this video will be linked down below. These albums are available over at Freckled Fawn, and they have just a lot of fun things over there as well if you've never checked out the Freckled Fawn shop. But I thought this might be a fun, different way to work through this particular study, because I knew I was gonna be wanting to do a lot of journaling on this particular topic, because it's something that I really, resonate with and are trying to work through and struggle with at times, being okay with God being in control and changing, our plans. And so I wanted some extra room for journaling. So that is what I will be journaling in throughout the month. So just keep that in mind as I share the different things from my cart for this project, but you could very easily use them in your journaling Bible as well. So I try to pull out, of course, the things from the release from ByTheWell4God, but also some other things from my stash, older products, other companies that might work. And so I had seen my friend Tiffany, I'll put her Instagram down below for you guys. She does amazing mixed media art, and she had shared about some 49 and Market products. And so this was one of the things I ended up picking up. This is the Curator's Meadow washi tape. These washi tapes, I've never purchased these from 49 and Market before. They are super, super nice. They come in these nice sturdy boxes. It's this wide roll of washi, but it also comes with this plastic piece here that's actually got a like a blade on it, so you can cut the washi and it just stores in there nicely. Now I pulled off a pretty big chunk of the washi tape and just put it on some plain paper, and even with this there wasn't any repeating pattern, and as I looked pretty far through there wasn't repeating pattern. So I'm not quite sure how long it is, the space in between the pattern, if it is at all repeating. It's a lot of just decorative pieces on that washi tape that is very, very different. And so you're not getting, when you use washis, let me see if I can find, I don't know, I don't have a good example right here, but if the repeating pattern is like only this far away, and then as you fill the whole bottom of your page, you've just got this chunked repeating pattern, I don't love that look. So I like that this was, pretty wide and could be used as just a collage background very, very easily. I know it's a little bit of a different style than the kit, but I liked the black and white graphic look with the lemons, and then also kind of made me think of the Defined stamp set that they just released, just with all the like scripty text, the bees, that kind of look that you're getting in here is what this kind of reminded me of. So that's why I picked that up. Now this is washi tape, so it tears like washi. You could go in with watercolors or markers or paints and kind of spotlight color some areas if you wanted to, but this creates a very easy background if you wanted, and it's 4 inches. So if you're working those 2-inch margins, or even the illustrating Bible with the 4-inch margin, this would cover the entire margin space. Maybe run a little bit of white paint or white gesso over it to kind of mute it back if you wanted to, and then you've got an instant background. There's even looks like a little fly or bee in there. So it just, I don't know, I just thought it was really, really cute. And it was very neutral, and then I could use it with other projects as well. So I've got that in my cart. And then I also picked up from 49 Market these Meadow rub-on transfer sets. They had a couple different sets. These are the 6x8 pages. I've used the rub-ons from Tim Holtz before, but I hadn't ever used these ones from 49 and Market. Again, there were lots in here that probably won't perfectly match, this kit, but this one would go well. This with the yellow butterfly would go well. Not so much these woodland animals, but they were just super cute. But there's little pieces in here that you can use. There was this kind of drip, like coffee stain There are some blue stamps in there, green stamps that I could use. Little phrases, of course these black and white ones, you know, maybe not so much the woodland critters, but these textures here. And so it does come with a really nice like bone folder type piece. And so what you're gonna do is you actually remove this from the backer sheet. You're gonna stick it on your page if you've never used a rub-on before. And then you're gonna rub from the front, and it's going to transfer this onto your page. I usually kind of cut out the individual pieces I'm gonna use. That way I don't risk, you know, accidentally transferring something that I didn't want to on there. But this came with quite a few sets of rub-on transfers, and from what I've seen, they're really nice quality, and I thought they were really, really cute. For creating, you know, it looks like it just kind of melts into the page, like you know, painted that or stamped that, but it's no bleed through. You're not having to create it yourself. It's just an instant kind of image on the page. So these are the Curator's Meadow rub-on transfers. So I will have those linked down for you as well. I pulled out some washi tapes. I don't always know where the washi tape comes from because I don't keep track. I know for a fact this one's from Felicity Jane. These ones are probably Maggie Holmes. Actually, all three of these are probably Maggie Holmes washis, older sets. But I just kind of trying to go through my washi stash. I liked the kind of pairing the gingham and the linens with this particular kit. A little bit of floral, of course, lots of yellows. And so you'll kind of be seeing lots of that gingham or plaid throughout the items that I picked. Kind of reminds me of like a picnic. I have a little tray in here with all of the die cut pieces. I have gone ahead and started like cutting down the white area just because I like mine with less of a border. So I'm kind of going through there and doing that. I also keep any smaller items in here as well. The kit sticker, the verse card, but then I have this little container of Felicity Jane sprinkles. It does look like they still have these in stock, and I thought these would be cute for pairing with the Quench stamp set and making a little shaker. And so there are like little lemon slices and yellow and white sprinkles in there. They're just super, super cute. I've been holding on to it for a while. Wasn't quite sure how I was gonna use it, and I figured this would match perfect to make a little shaker element. Especially when I'm working in that binder, I can create dashboards or, you know, bookmarks, things like that with these more chunky dimensional elements that maybe I wouldn't necessarily use in my Bible. I do believe Taryn, Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, has a video showing how she did a shaker pocket with this stamp set, so I will link her video down below. I will also be doing a tips and tricks video later on this week, kind of showing how I do mine, but if you want to get a jump start on that, you can check out hers, but I plan on using that with this stamp set here. So I've got that in that little tray all together. And then we've got this wooden box. Again, I got this from Target. This kind of just lives in my cart at all times, and I just kind of swap out things. So, you know, lots of items from the release, you know, all of the fabrics and goodies and things like that. So I'm just gonna kind of focus on the things that are not Creative Retreat. So I did pull out the Snippets number strips from Tim Holtz. This reminded me of the numbered stamp set, a little bit different of course, but if I wanted to just have them ready to go, it's a little more vintage than I'm gonna go with this particular kit, but it might make for some fun, you know, adding into clusters. I'm gonna try not to use a whole bunch of grungy things with this month. I'm gonna try to keep it pretty white and yellow and green, very bright and summery and fun, but I thought that these would kind of pair well together, so I have those in there. I've got the papers for stencils. I, of course, have the ones from By the Well, the newest ones. This is the lemon one and the like bunting one. But there was this one here, and of course I did not come prepared with a solid piece of cardstock because that would just be the smart thing to do. So let me see if I can find, here we go. Okay, this was an older stencil from ByTheWell4God. I can't remember the name of it. I need to start writing the names on here. But it has this plaid and then these bees. Now the bees are definitely more like cartoon, kind of fun bees than the bees in the kit. But I could also just kind of use bits and pieces of this stencil as well if I wanted to. So I've got the 3 ByTheWell4God stencils. And then I pulled out some, of course, from Tim Holtz. I liked that there was all of these, like, you know, lemonade and, you know, cups and things like that in the release this month, and so I wanted to do some spills. Typically these are coffee spills, but they could also be done in yellow, or, you know, make it look like a water spill or something like that. So this is one of the mini sets. If it's still available, I'll have it linked down below. There's this shifter hex stamp set, or stencil, I'm sorry. So you go through and you blend or paint or however you're gonna apply your color through the stencil, and then it's got kind of a, like, outline of those. So you're then gonna shift it over. You're gonna line up where you painted this into that square, and then you could do a different color, or you could just continue the pattern. And so there's a couple different ways that you can use these shifter stencils. And of course with the hex and the bees, I thought that would go well. This stencil is one of the ones that comes at Joann's with the stamp set. So you can get a stamp set and a stencil in one. If I can find this, I'll link it down below. It has kind of this grungy hex that fades into this kind of spotted texture there, but again, wanting that kind of honeycomb look. And then blossoms, I did have this one last month, but you know, there are some lemon blossoms in the release this month, so I'm doing the blossom stencil again. I love using this with texture paste, especially you saw on the front of my album here, using the white texture paste through that lemon stencil. I just like the look of that, especially on a solid paper. And so I will probably be doing that with this blossom stencil as well. So those are the stencils that I pulled. Trying to go through and find some older ones. They're not always available, but again, it's to remind you of what you have in your stash. I know there were some complaints from people, you know, about me sharing stuff that isn't available any longer. And part of that is just to remind you guys, you may have already picked it up when you've seen a video of mine. And so to remind you to pull it out. We don't have to order new things every single month, new scrapbooking products, you know, all the time. We can use up what we have. So on that note, I did pull some Felicity Jane papers. Now I know I haven't shared a whole lot of Felicity Jane recently. I haven't been doing as much scrapbooking, but I have a ton of it in my office. And so I remembered that there were several kits that had lemons. So there was the Elizabeth kit that had this lemon paper, you know, not a total spot on match, but I can use little bits and pieces of it as decorative elements. Amanda had this more graphic lemon in there as well. And then these are just neutral backgrounds. So if I wanted to use, or neutral on the back. So if I wanted to use the back sides of them, I could do that as well. And then I went through and picked out a couple of yellows that I thought would match. There was Hope and Millie had these striped, yellow striped pieces that kind of coordinated as well, and that was just a start. I didn't want to, you know, overwhelm myself because I do have the full set of papers from ByTheWell4God as well. But if I was looking for more of just a, you know, basic pattern or something that wasn't covered in here, I can go through Felicity Jane's stash and pick those papers out. But you may have these, you know, sitting around in your stash if you were subscribed to them, if you got these kits when I was sharing them and didn't use these particular papers. These are ones that you can pull out to use with this release. Now, everything else in here is going to be from the release. It's the stickers, alphabet stickers, journaling cards, labels, the make a tea. I did stick that bag of bags back in here. They had released this a few months ago, and it's a bag of just that, bags. So I could use these as pockets in that journal. If this is still available, I will have it linked down below, but this kind of just lives permanently in my cart as well. So the rest of that is just going to be ByTheWell4God stuff. So let me, let's see. Also, let's see, on the top I have the stamps from the release. So these are just all the new stamps I keep on the top. That way I'm intentional about using these first because these are the new ones that I haven't used yet. So I want to make sure that I get, you know, a lot of use out of these before they get stored away. But that is everything that's on the top of the cart. Let me put this away and we'll pull out the second tier with all the mediums and all that kind of fun stuff. Okay, so we'll start with this chunk and then I'll bring out the dies and stamps and all that goodness. So of course I'd already mentioned the planner punch board that has the basic circle punches. I also will be using the spiral punches just to add texture to journaling cards and papers and things like that to kind of give it that torn notebook look. So that is in the second tier of my cart. I mentioned I like using texture paste through the stencils, so I have some just regular matte texture paste. I don't know that I'll be using so much texture paste. It's a little grungier than I want to go with this particular release. So I just have the regular texture paste. I sometimes get questions about this. This is just press and seal pushed down in here to push out the air so that my texture paste lasts longer. That's a little tip for keeping it moist and not moldy and gross, is to kind of make sure you keep that pressed down over the top of it. Kind of saves it longer. Going along with that black and white kind of graphic look, I did pull out some collage papers, kind of redundant with that 4-inch washi tape, but I'm wanting to use up my stash, use things that I have, so I'm going to stick these in there. This is Botanical and Typeset. These are from Tim Holtz, and these are just rolls of tissue paper that are printed, and so you can easily create collaged backgrounds. You can add color underneath first, or you can add color over the top, and kind of build up, mixed media type look. Again, I don't want to get super grungy, so I'll probably keep it, more of that black and white look and just kind of use it as accent pieces. I could even just apply this to just a plain white card, journaling card, and then journal on the back side would just be very simple and a way to use up what I have. So the florals are not, of course, a match for what's in the kit, but it's florals. I'm gonna go with it. So I've got both of those in there. I have the Distress inks. These colors were pulled from the palette from ByTheWell4God. They do post that in their Facebook group. They post that on their Instagram in a post, all of the color swatches that they pull. I may pull in some additional greens just to kind of get more tones, but this is kind of the base that I'm starting with. I may also pull in a little bit of mustard seed for a deeper yellow as well. But here are the colors. We have Stormy Sky, Tumbled Glass, Pumice Stone, Bundled Sage, Squeezed Lemonade, Peeled Paint, and like I said, I just pulled Mustard Seed. For any distress products, these are the colors that I'll be using. So when it comes to distress spray stains, distress oxide sprays, crayons, I did go ahead and order some more of the distress crayons in the colors that I didn't have. I like to use these in place of gelatos. They do have gelato colors over on their swatches for you guys if you'd rather use gelatos. And so as far as, distress products, I won't go into detail for all of those because they're all gonna be these colors. And so I like to just pull them all out together, have them ready to go in my cart. The Versamagic inks, they color swatch these as well. So we have Aspen Mist, Hint of Pesto, Tea Leaves, Thatch Straw, and Asian Blue. So these are a pigment ink or a chalk ink, but they're pigment based, and so they don't bleed through your Bible pages. So if you're looking for a good stamping ink to invest in, these are kind of my favorite for using in my Bible when I don't want bleed through. And then you can heat set these, and they are water resistant. I wouldn't say that they're waterproof, but they're just a really nice quality non-bleeding ink that you can use in your Bible. So those are that. And then for Distress Glazes, they don't have this color palette in the Distress Glazes yet. So I pulled out Speckled Egg, Antique Linen. They do have Peeled Paint, and then Fossilized Amber. Those were the closest colors I could get to match this particular color palette. They have not released the whole Distress line in the Distress Glazes. The glazes are like typical embossing powders, except that they are translucent. So if you were to stamp underneath this, you could still see the stamp. It's not opaque. And so they're just kind of fun for adding some added texture to your projects. Then I also stuck a little thing of the new Foundry wax. This is in Gilded. I sometimes forget that I have these because they're kind of tucked away on my desk, so I want to be intentional about using these. These are a really fun product that you can kind of apply with your finger or a paintbrush, and then you heat set it, and it just creates this really amazing metallic sheen that's very different from embossing, like metallic embossing powders. So I'm gonna add that in. I'm not planning on using too much gold, but I may need a little gold in there. In this little cup, this is mostly tools, so some splatter paint brushes. I do have a water brush if I'm wanting to do some watercolors, a Micron pen. I did also pull out the NeoColor 2 crayons and stuck them in there. Now you do get the little watercolor swatch card in the kit, so you don't really need additional watercolors, but there are some fun techniques you can do with NeoColor 2 crayons. I did not have the Chinese green that they suggested, so these are the ones that I pulled. I pulled moss green, chromium oxide green, light olive, and then pale yellow and lemon yellow for my yellows, and then light cobalt blue. So those are the ones that I have pulled out. I have just about every NeoColor too, but I did not have the Chinese green one. I did go ahead and pull a couple brush markers. Now, just keep in mind, you're not really supposed to store your brush markers upright like this. I'm going to, just for, you know, a little while that I will be using them this month, but I typically store them on their side. These are the smaller brushes, and I have light yellow glaze and ice blue. I will be using these for highlighting verses, you know, highlighting, you know, maybe things that I want to stand out in my journaling. So that's kind of the purpose of those. And then I do also have a palette knife in here for using with that texture paste. So I've been trying to keep my tools kind of all together, and through the month, if I pull other tools, they'll stay in here, and that way everything's kind of together. So we kind of push that to the side, and then we can pull out all of the stamps and dies. All right, so some of these may be repeats from months past just because they're ones that I use quite a bit, but let's kind of start with this wider size over here. I do have a larger stencil. This is dotted from scrapbook.com. It didn't really fit with my other stencils up top, but I liked the dot that was in one of the pattern papers, and so I wanted to kind of mimic that with my stencil. So there is that. I also pulled out this older stamp set from ByTheWell4God. This is his story. I don't think this one is available any longer. The ones that are available, I will have linked down below for you guys, but I wanted to use these little tidbits to give myself some journaling spots on those blank pages, and so these will work for that, but I do also have an alternative stamp set that would work for that as well, in case you don't have that one. I pulled out this one from Stampers Anonymous, is Entomology. It does have this scripty text, which I love, but then it also has the bugs. So if I wanted to include some more bees, and there is a coordinating die set. So this is Entomology Framelits, and so this does match up with the stamp set. There are lots of tips and tricks on Tim Holtz's YouTube for how to get a good lined up die, because this does not leave a white edge like a lot of dies do. It cuts right up to the edge of the stamp, and you know, I could use other bugs in here as well, but I was going for the bees and wasps and things like that, so those will be pairing together. And then also this one here, Field Notes. Again, just kind of going with the look of that washi tape, the collage paper, had some bugs and just kind of nature-y pieces in here as well, just to kind of create some fun elements and, you know, not be grungy, but still have that kind of piece together, you know, scrapbook type look with this particular stamp set. So those are the two that I pulled out from Tim. Okay, for embossing folders, I have this one from Doris. I don't even know what the name of it is. This is, I probably picked up from Joann's, but it has all of these like little citrus pieces. So this actually embosses the paper, so it'll emboss this texture onto the paper. And so I thought it might be fun for little journaling cards or, you know, added little scraps of texture. You could ink up the top of this. You could use the gilding wax to go over the top of this design. But I was trying to find something that had citrus, and I pulled this one out. So I will try to hunt this down online and find it for you guys. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I got it from Joann's like years and years ago. In addition to that embossing folder, I've pulled out these two. These are 3D embossing folders. There's woven and quilted. Quilted, again, I was just kind of going for textures because there's that kind of linen texture printed on some of the items from the release. And so this actually gives a very, very subtle texture to the paper. So it's great for journaling cards and layering bits and things like that. It's not a super, super obvious embossed image. This one also is pretty subtle. It does add this fun kind of stitched detail that you could go in and highlight with a marker or something like that. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can get that sewn look with this embossing folder. So there are those. Again, I already mentioned that die. Let's see, this is a newer one from Tim Holtz. This is Simple Plaid. Yes, it is a plaid, but also, again, kind of going for that linen burlap, you know, kind of plaid look. And so this is a die that cuts out that texture there. So you could use it in its entirety or kind of, you know, cut away little bits and pieces to add some texture to your project. These we've seen a million times. These are the brush stroke florals. These are the leaves that I used on the front cover of my album. So you don't have to use them in their entirety. You can just use bits and pieces from here. But I could also use the florals if I wanted to. And the nice thing about this is then I can color them in to coordinate with the colors of the release. This is one that I ordered specifically for this kit. So this is from Paper Rose, and this is the Summer Drink die set. I've really been enjoying the Paper Rose dies. They're very, very reasonably priced, and I feel like they cut just as well, if not better, than some of the other dies that I have. And so this is a small little drink cup. There's a die for a straw. There is this layered bit for like a lemon or lime or orange or grapefruit, you know, however you want to color it, and then some little ice cubes. So I just thought it was really cute. Again, you could create another little shaker element with this if you wanted to, or, you know, a paper pieced die cut element to put on your project. I just thought it was cute. So there is Summer Drink from Paper Rose. Then I have a Coco and Reno lace dies. Coco and Reno they do like a monthly subscription, but they also list their dies individually. Again, pretty reasonably priced, but they're not always available. So it's like if they have extras, they will list those individually from the month. Sometimes they bring them back. So if this one is available, I will link it down below, but it was just a bunch of little lacy elements that I thought kind of went with that very clean, white, you know, summery look to the kit. Intricate hexagon. I'm going to kind of mimic the, you know, honeycomb look. These are very decorative, but there are multiple pieces. This one I got from Hobby Lobby, but I do believe they have this on scrapbook.com as well, so I will have this linked down below. This could create little journaling cards or little journaling spots on the page. You know, just trying to pull things to use that I don't always use. Nested pockets, so if I wanted additional journaling space on a page without going to the next page, I can use this with the pattern papers to create some little custom pockets to put on there, and there's all different sizes in there. And then this is a repeat from Paper Rose. This is the gum leaves 4 and 5. You know, not perfectly matching the leaves from the kit, but, you know, leafy, so then I can add some leaves as little die cut elements. So not quite as many dies this time around, but still a fair amount. Now let's dig into some of the older stamp sets from ByTheWell4God, and I have a ton. Again, not all of these are still available. I know that is frustrating. This is to remind you to use what you have in your stash. Maybe you have something from a different company that is similar. Just kind of inspire you to work with what you got. And then if it is available, it'll be linked down below. So Blessed Washi and Texture. This was actually released during a Christmas release, and this like buffalo check plaid, but if you stamp this in that light blue color, you could get a look kind of similar to the plaids and things that are in the release this month. So that's why I pulled that one. Vintage collage, obviously going with that kind of collage look. Very easy to do with the stamp set. Now, I may not use everything. I try to share just lots of ideas for you. So you don't need to have the collage paper and the washi tape and the stamp set. Maybe you have one of those to get that look. That should work. So there is Vintage Collage. Build Plaid DIY. So this is 3 separate stamps that you can build up a plaid depending on how many of the stamps that you use. So if, you know, this is a very busy plaid, but if you just used, you know, a couple of them, you could get a very loose kind of plaid gingham look with this stamp set. So there's that. Here's another stamp that I mentioned as an alternative to his story. This is grids and lines. So there's a dot grid and just journaling lines. So, you know, maybe you have one or the other or both, but this is just gonna give me some journaling space on those blank white pages in that album. Little letterboard. This is an older stamp set. Not too old, but I was inspired by this subject to change piece here. So this is not a letterboard. It's actually like a linen printed on there, but I thought it would kind of be the same. So if you like the look of this die cut piece, this stamp set would be a good one to pull out. And then it's got this alphabet on the bottom, so you can kind of create your own little titles and phrases and things like that on a letterboard. So there's little letterboard. Frame of God, I just liked, you know, again, just kind of giving myself some focus spots on the page to do journaling or highlight something, and so I could do that with these frames. They are a little more vintage than what I'm going for, but I think it will work as long as I stamp it nice and clean. So there is Frame of God. Blackout Fruit, this is a much older stamp set, but it does have this kind of citrus piece in there. You can even use a little greenery in there. So just, again, trying to remind you to pull out things. You know, we may typically only use this when we're journaling Fruit of the Spirit. So now is the time to pull out those Fruit of the Spirit stamps that you have and use the citrus pieces from that. Place Your Faith. So again, like I mentioned, you know, typically used with coffee, these little spill rings, but you could just change up the color and it would be something different. And so those would be fun to use on there. DIY Garland. This was released last November or December. It was a Christmassy release. So it's very, you know, Christmas festive. That was oranges in here, but you could also stamp these in yellow and have lemons. And so even, you know, a lot of the pieces that are in here, you could use and just not use the pine cones and the cinnamon, and just by changing up the colors, give you a really different look that coordinates with this particular release. Sweeter Than Honey, again, a much older stamp set with the little bees. There's these adorable tiny little bees, this honeycomb piece, really cute. I love the kind of watercolor look of this. You guys have seen me, I think last month, I did the technique where you color this with like watercolor markers, brush markers, and then kind of draw it out with a water brush, and it kind of gives you a really pretty no line watercolor look. That would be a great technique with this particular stamp set, but it was cute and had really cute bees in there. So Be Christ-like. This totally different bees in here, but there is the little hexagon pieces, you know, so, you know, maybe this is more your style, or maybe this is more your style. So, you know, you might not use them both together, but to kind of give you guys some ideas, I wanted to share both of those. Discordance, so totally not intended to be bees and honeycomb, but I liked this piece right here as just a texture element. It kind of had that linen texture in it, the hexagon kind of honeycomb piecing. So I probably won't use the other, oh, there is a polka dot you could use that would coordinate, but I really was going for that one there to create some fun backgrounds. And actually this scribbly one would go with messy bees with that scribbly look. So this is a good one. If you have discordance, pull that one out. This would be a good month to use it. Growth chart. This one has this pot. Now you could kind of mask this out if you didn't want the ruler in there. And then these pieces build up to create almost like a little lemon tree. So, or without the pot, you could create little, bows or decorative elements of little lemon sprigs on your page. So there's that one. And then garden markers, if you're wanting to go with some, kind of more the garden theme more than the bee theme, but you could mix and match the bees in here as well. So if you wanted to do, kind of cutesy look, you could do that with garden markers, and then you could write in verse addresses or, the person's name that we're studying, whatever it might be. But this is one of those ones that probably was only, used with that particular release, not one that you use quite a bit. So pull it back out, you can use it with this release. So there are all the stamps, dies, and embossing folders. And then the last thing that I have in my cart that you may have seen in that initial video is this little guy. This is actually an idea that I got from Taryn. And one thing I didn't mention at the top of my cart here is this little cluster of fabric and string and just lace and textures, but there is the dyeable ribbon bob from ByTheWell4God. And this is seam binding that you can dye with inks, paints, gelatos, watercolor, you name it. And so she had this trick where she put it in here, sprayed it in here, capped it and then shook it up, and then that was a way to color it without getting your hands all messy. So I thought that was brilliant. So this will be living in my cart as long as I will be using the ribbon bob there, but you could do the same for other ribbons as well. But that's what that little cluster of fabrics on the top were, and then this pink container on the bottom was. So there is a look at everything that I have in my cart for this month as I work through Subject to Change. Again, I'll be working in this little album here. Everything will be linked down below that I can possibly find to link. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down there for me. I do hop in and answer those questions for you. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. Stay tuned. Later on this week, I will have a tips and tricks video showing you some of the things that I mentioned, techniques, ideas, and things like that with this release, and that will be linked down below once it goes live. So make sure you subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.